In the northern reaches of Europe, nestled between the icy waters of the Baltic Sea and the shadows of powerful empires, lies a country that has often been overlooked yet never forgotten: Estonia. A nation with fewer than 2 million people, but with a history that could fill volumes of books. Estonia is one of those places that shock you, not with its size, but with its resilience, its oddities, and its uncanny ability to reinvent itself time and again. This is not just another country. It is a story of survival, of creativity, of tragedy, and of triumph. And the deeper you go into Estonia's tale, the stranger and more fascinating it becomes. Long before anyone could call themselves Estonian, the land was a patchwork of tribes. For thousands of years, people lived by the forests and the sea, carving out livelihoods from fishing, farming, and trading. Unlike other places in Europe, there was no single founder king or grand dynasty in Estonia. Instead, it was a stubborn people clinging to their land, resisting whoever dared to conquer them. And conquerors came often. Vikings raided these shores. German knights tried to subdue the tribes, and later, Swedes, Danes, and Russians each left their mark. Every invasion left scars, yet somehow, Estonia always managed to stitch itself back together, even if under another's shadow. One of the most shocking episodes came in the 13th century, during the Northern Crusades, when German crusaders cloaked in Christianity marched in with swords and fire. The Estonian tribes fought ferociously, but their independence was crushed. For centuries after, the Estonian people were ruled, not rulers. They became peasants in their own land, often forbidden from even owning property. The German-speaking elite controlled towns, trade, and politics, while Estonians worked the fields. And yet, even in this darkness, the Estonian spirit flickered. Folk songs, pagan traditions, and a quiet sense of identity simmered beneath the surface. Move forward to the 16th and 17th centuries, and Estonia became a prize fought over by Sweden and Russia. The Swedes left behind schools and churches, but it was also a time of endless wars. Famines and plagues wiped out nearly half the population at one point. If you think of Estonia as a small, fragile state today, imagine how much more vulnerable it was then. And yet, through all this, the people held on to something precious: their language. While the ruling class spoke German or Russian, the farmers and fishermen spoke Estonian, passing it down quietly, never letting it die. By the 19th century, something incredible happened. Across Europe, nationalism was rising, and in Estonia, too, peasants began to find their voice. A cultural awakening known as the Estonian National Awakening brought poets, musicians, and thinkers who declared proudly, "We are Estonian, and we will not disappear." The most powerful weapon in this awakening was not a sword, but a song. Estonians gathered by the thousands for song festivals, belting out hymns of freedom. Singing for them was not entertainment, it was rebellion. To this day, Estonia is known as the Singing Nation, because their music carried them through centuries of oppression. But just as Estonia began to taste freedom, the world collapsed into chaos. World War I toppled empires, and for the first time in centuries, Estonia saw its chance. In 1918, in the middle of war and uncertainty, the Estonian people declared independence. Imagine it. A small nation, barely armed, standing up in the middle of Europe's deadliest conflict, saying, "We exist." It was bold, it was shocking, and for a brief moment, it was real. For the first time, Estonia was a sovereign state. That independence, however, was short-lived. In 1940, the Soviet Union invaded, crushing Estonia's freedom under the weight of tanks and secret police. The next 5 decades would be some of the darkest in Estonian history. Thousands of Estonians were deported to Siberia, families vanished overnight, churches were shut down, and speaking openly about independence was a crime. To make matters worse, during World War II, the Nazis also occupied Estonia, creating a nightmare of shifting tyrannies. For Estonians, the 20th century was a cruel game of survival. First under the Soviets, then the Nazis, then back under the Soviets again. It is hard to imagine the trauma of those years. Entire generations lost, freedom erased, and a future uncertain. And yet Estonia did something extraordinary. They did not fight the Soviets with guns. Instead, they fought with voices. In the late 1980s, as the Soviet Union began to weaken, Estonians gathered by the hundreds of thousands at song festivals. They sang forbidden patriotic songs, waved banned flags, and dared the Soviet authorities to silence them. The world called it the Singing Revolution, and it worked. By 1991, Estonia broke free without a single bullet fired. The idea that a tiny nation could topple one of the world's great superpowers with music is not just shocking, it is miraculous. But perhaps the most shocking part of Estonia's story comes after independence. You might expect a small nation, scarred by war and oppression, to limp into the modern era. Instead, Estonia sprinted. Within just a decade, it transformed itself into one of the most advanced digital societies in the world. While much of the globe was still learning what the internet even was, Estonia rolled out online voting, digital ID cards, and e-government services. Today, nearly every service in Estonia, from signing contracts to paying taxes, can be done online in minutes. They even invented Skype, a tool that changed communication forever. For a country once seen as a pawn of empires, Estonia became a pioneer of the digital world. But Estonia is not just a land of tech and history. It is also a place of breathtaking beauty and strange wonders. Its capital, Tallinn, is one of Europe's best-preserved medieval cities, with cobblestone streets, towers, and walls that look straight out of a fairy tale. Yet step outside the city, and you find a country of forests and bogs, where bears, wolves, and lynxes still roam freely. Nearly half of Estonia is covered in forest, and its bog landscapes, with wooden boardwalks stretching into the mist, look almost otherworldly. Estonia also hides countless secrets. Did you know that it has more meteorite craters per square kilometer than anywhere else in the world? Or that its language, Estonian, is one of the hardest in Europe, related not to German or Russian, but to Finnish and distant Hungarian. To outsiders, the language sounds strange, even alien. But to Estonians, it is their heart and soul. There's also the shocking reality that Estonians believe strongly in nature spirits, ancient traditions, and even magic. Folk tales of witches and forest guardians still thrive in villages. Saunas are not just for relaxation, but almost a spiritual ritual, connecting the body and soul. And in the long, dark winters, when daylight lasts only a few hours, people light candles in every window, creating a soft glow that seems almost mystical. Yet perhaps the most surprising thing about Estonia is its balance. This is a country that has endured centuries of suffering, yet its people are not bitter. They are proud, calm, and quietly confident. They have embraced modernity without abandoning tradition. They are digital pioneers, yet they still gather by the tens of thousands to sing. They are survivors, but also dreamers. When you look at Estonia's story as a whole, it reads like a paradox. It is small, yet mighty. It has been conquered, yet undefeated. It was once voiceless, yet now sings louder than most. It has been scarred by tragedy, yet filled with hope. Estonia shocks not by the size of its monuments or the fame of its leaders, but by its resilience, creativity, and refusal to vanish. So when you think of Estonia, do not think of it as a footnote in history or a tiny state on the map. Think of it as a lesson in survival. Think of it as a country that dared to fight empires with songs, that rose from oppression to lead in technology, and that hides secrets in its forests, its myths, and its people. Estonia is not just a nation, it is a story, one that continues to surprise, to inspire, and to remind the world that sometimes the smallest voices carry the greatest power.